Hi everyone and welcome to another video. In today's video we're going to be looking at rezzing. If you're not new here then you probably don't know that I was actually meant to post this quite a while back, but I have literally just kept on stalling it off, and so today I decided that I'm actually going to post it. But if you want the full kind of thing, because I'm not going to bore you in the intro about all my insecurities and whatnot, then I will probably put it in the description, so if you'd like to read it, you can read it there. But really, do not feel compelled to read it, because it's not that interesting and it literally just touches on my insecurities. Before we talk more about rezzing and how to do it, I just wanted to address two things. The first thing being, I'm sorry if the audio is a little bit weird, it's because I'm using the voiceover option on CapCut right now as I don't have a mic. The second thing is I would really like to thank all of you for all the support that you've been giving me regardless of my breaks over this 3-month period. Obviously I'm very new to YouTube, so the whole workload of making videos, editing them, and also playing a game that's inside of a very toxic community is quite overwhelming actually. So what does Mercy's Resurrect actually do? Well, it's one of her abilities that's on a 30-second cooldown regardless of whether you do it successfully or not. And the ability itself brings back a teammate from the dead to help you win a fight. And there's two main questions I want to answer in her kind of Resurrect ability, and one of them is, what is the cast time for Rez? The cast time for Rez is 1.75 seconds, which is a really short cast time. However, it does leave Mercy quite vulnerable as it decreases your movement speed. The res range is 5 meters to actually trigger the cast, and then you can move back an extra 2 meters, extending it to 7 meters for the actual res. Before we dive into the different res types, I want to draw your attention to the meter that appears on the right side of your staff when you are GAing to a target. This meter dictates the speed and the height at which Mercy slingshots / super jumps at. You'll notice that this meter has a red zone, which we'll talk about more when we're looking at crouch reses. The first type of res that we'll be talking about today is the simple super jump res. For this one, I suggest practicing flicking your camera as that's the main component to this res. Once you have this movement down, all you do is GA to the soul, flick up and press res. However, avoid flicking too high as that will break your res. For those of you out there who play on a slower sensitivity and flicking is harder, here's how you can also super jump res. I like to use this res when trying to res over walls or onto ledges, like so. So here's how to do a super jump res differently. GA to the soul, look up, look down quickly and press res. Next up, we're going to be talking about the crouch res. For this res, we're coming back to look at the meter. This res can only be performed when you're in close proximity of the soul. This is when the meter and the red area comes into play. When the meter charges to the red zone, as you're about to crouch res, it will always break off. It also breaks off when you're above the wing symbol. Here's how to do a crouch res. GA to the soul, press crouch, then res. I like to use this res when the soul is in a doorway, like so. Or on this map, like this. The next res I want to talk about is the backwards super jump res. I find that this res is much easier to do on console, but it's doable on PC too. Here's how to do it. GA to the soul. A little bit before you get to the soul, you turn around and look down. Lastly, once you get to the soul, you press jump and res while holding your left stick towards yourself. For PC players, you hold S down. Next is the falling res. This res is only really used when you're playing with a character who can be shot out of the sky, like a Pharah or an Echo. Here's how to do it. GA to the soul while it's falling. Once you've pressed res, this will freeze the soul in place, and remember to hold Angelic Descent down so that you don't break the res. Lastly, let's talk about the Slingshot Rez. This res is definitely the hardest to master, and I still struggle with it, but it's an incredibly useful res to know how to do. There are two different Slingshot Rezes, however they are executed in the same way. The two different Slingshot Rezes are normal Slingshot Rezes and Slingshot Rezes with a little bit of height. Here's how to perform a regular Slingshot Rez. GA to the soul, press jump and res at the exact same time. Here's how to perform the height one. GA to the soul, while you are flying to the soul, look up, press jump and res at the same time. I actually find myself using the height one more to get onto ledges as it feels a little bit more reliable. And as a little disclaimer, be careful not to break your res. While Slingshot Rezes are amazing for taking cover quickly, they can take you out of the res range just as fast. That's why it's important to not walk forward once you've been launched. So, what should you ask yourself before you go to res? Here are some things you should consider. Will my team be able to survive this without me? Is my support able to heal? Has my tank got enough HP? What value will this res bring? Does that teammate have ult? Is this res safe? Anything in the area for cover? Where are the enemies? Has Sombra used hack? Has Lucio booped anyone? And here are some things that you should consider as well. My number one biggest thing to consider is that not everything needs a super jump res. I don't know if I've mentioned it in this video so far, but I'm always behind the fact that if you don't need to super jump res, don't do it. Number 2. Just because you can res doesn't mean you need to. Sometimes waiting to regroup is much smarter. This also applies to when an ally dies in spawn or a few meters away from spawn. Don't waste your res on this. Number 3. You don't have to res instantly. There's pros and cons to insta-resing. Lastly, to end this video off, I want to talk about some tips and advice that I find is really useful. The first bit of advice I want to give you is, when rezzing around a hero who can boop you off like Lucio or D.Va, always cast res as close to the soul as you can. My next bit of advice is late rezzes. This links to my earlier conversation about instant rezzes, but if you can wait a res out for a bit, sometimes that can always be really useful. Next up is baiting rezzes. This can sometimes allow you to res, as this wastes the enemy's abilities and sometimes ults. Next, always having an escape plan after rezzing. Is there an ally you can fly to? You don't want to res something unless you have a escape plan in your head. Valkyrie rezzes are safer than normal. You charge Valkyrie quite quickly, so there's almost no way that you can waste that ultimate. Always stabilize your team before rezzing. Once you have rezzed your target, try and stay with them. This will boost your survival odds and also save you from getting flamed in chat. If I haven't made it obvious enough, don't res in the open. You can always get creative with your rezzes. Just like that, we've made it to the end. And that just about summarizes everything that I think I wanted to put into this video. I hope to make more videos like this. As I mentioned in the beginning, I am going to make a movement guide eventually too. For those of you that didn't see my post yesterday, I obviously spoke about the fact that I am back now, but I'm also reducing my posting schedule to 4 days a week, hopefully, to try and minimize the stress and the in general feeling of frustration and being overwhelmed. Also because of my driving lessons. As I mentioned, if there's anything else you would like to see, then please let me know, and if there's any questions, then I'm more than happy to answer them. If you're interested in seeing more of me, then I would urge you to go and check out my TikTok, which I will hopefully, and I say this all the time, but I will hopefully be posting more on there very soon, as obviously this is my first speaking video, so I'm hoping, as this is my first time, it's not going to be as hard to make a second one. And if you want a little sneak peek at what I want to post, I'm planning to launch a new series called Pocket-Sized Mercy Guides, where they will be very short videos with a lot of essential and kind of different information inside of them. So if that kind of gets your attention, then obviously keep an eye out on my TikTok and possibly even on my YouTube shorts. I'm awful at outros and goodbyes, so take this as your goodbye, but I hope you guys have a great day.